you so much. Good to follow up on Samuel's talk. I think he's already set the context for some of the keywords that might pop up in my talk. I don't. Have you started the timer? Do you want to? Yes, as I was saying, he's already set up a good premise for AGI, for some of where the world might be heading. Before I sort of start my topic, quick check. Who has heard of UBI or Universal Basic Income? Show of hands. Okay, I see some have, some haven't. Great. All right. So quickly, I'll talk. Hi, I am Arpit, and I wouldn't say mild, I have a unhealthy obsession with numbers, lists, spreadsheets, cheese popcorn and nerd humor. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll only see nerd cartoons that I share. That's a bit about me. By trade, I'm a chartered accountant, so finance, so UBI is a topic that's close home. Yes. What all we'll be covering? 1 second, yes. What all we'll be covering? I want to cover what UBI is. We will then go into the history of UBI, like how old is the idea? Is that something that's been around for a long time? Is it something that's just come up because of the kind of intelligence we're seeing in the world? Why are we talking about it now? Why is it suddenly the main topic? We also talk about the economic implications of UBI. I'll go a little more detail about what UBI is, but the economic implications of UBI. And then we look at a almost a fictitious or sort of we take a stab at imagining what the world could be like when all of these ideas have percolated. These have all become implemented in the world. We have AGI, we have ASI, we have UBI. What could the world look like? We're just taking a stab, right? Yes. So what this talk is and isn't, you'll notice that I'm sitting here. I am not standing there because I want to look at all of your faces. I want to make this a conversation. And this topic is actually very dense. It has a lot of nuance. Obviously, I can't cover all the nuance, but the idea is to give you a quick primer on what AGI, on what UBI is. It's almost synonymous. What UBI is, and so that when you hear the word next time, UBI, or you hear it in the mainstream news, you at least get a sense of, okay, this is what's being talked about, this is being discussed. I want to leave you with curiosity and questions about UBI, and if at the end of the session you have that curiosity, this talk would have accomplished its motive. It's meant to stoke curiosity, but not answer all questions. I'll just quickly brief through, and it'll be more like a quick, easy, breezy conversation rather than something that's very heavy. If you have any questions at any point in time, you can just shoot them up, or you can wait until the end of the topic. Either is fine with me. Yes, what is UBI? In fact, I was talking to Tarun, and I almost was in half a mind to do a running gag joke and distribute 100 rupees to everyone around here, but then common sense prevailed. But that would have actually demonstrated what UBI is. So UBI stands for Universal Basic Income. What that means is it has three characteristics, right? It has universality. It's basically universal. It's applicable to all citizens, regardless of what their background, age, caste, gender, anything at all. It is unconditional. It is not dependent on whether you're employed or not, whether you have a certain income level or not. It's nothing. It's basically saying, make a list of all the people who are in this country or in this territory and hand them money. It's free money like that, right? And it's also individual. So there are certain kinds of payments that are sometimes at the household level. Think of something like a Medicaid or something like how you have ration cards. They are basically at a household level. But the concept of UBI is basically, it embodies these three concepts, and it says that what would happen if we handed out, a good way to think about it is free money. If we handed out free money to everyone, a certain monthly paycheck to everyone, and serving this serving as a minimum sustenance floor, or a minimum sustenance, so that everyone has some money to live a basic life, and they can still sort of get by in life. So that's basically the concept of UBI. Now, this concept is not new, right? It's been discussed from centuries ago. The very first reference that we see is in 1516 by a guy called Thomas More in his book called Utopia. And he wrote that it would be better to provide everyone with some means of livelihood than to punish people for stealing when they have no other way to eat. I personally love that line because I think it's very time agnostic. It's something that holds true even today. In the world that we're heading into, it could actually be a classic case of history repeats itself. So it's an important concept to keep in our mind. Even during the Great Depression in the 1930s in the US, the senator proposed a minimum $2,000 annual payment, $2,000 of that time, under the Share Our Wealth program. So it's been something that's been around for since even the 1930s, even before we had the Bretton Woods and we had the modern banking system. And even Martin Luther King, in his book, referenced something to the effect of UBI, where he said that in his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, he mentioned the concept of UBI, saying that it's necessary, something like a UBI, in order for social welfare, in order for people to come out of poverty. And the difference between UBI and something that you see, some of the others, like I mentioned, Medicaid or some of the other welfare schemes that we see our governments run, is a lot of them have some sort of a minimum qualification. Okay, you know what, if you're earning, let's say 10,000 rupees a month, then you're eligible to these kinds of welfare benefits. But the moment you cross that threshold, you're no longer eligible for those benefits. And the problem with something like that is that encourages people to stay below that floor, otherwise below that ceiling rather, otherwise they lose the benefits. So in a certain way, those kinds of schemes can actually propagate or encourage people to stay within the limit, while in this case it's unconditional. People can just get the payment unconditional and choose to do whatever they want to do with it. Now we all love the idea of getting free money, but there are lots of questions that arise from getting free money, and I'll cover some of the questions later in the talk. But this is to establish that this idea is not new. It's just having a different wave. We are, in the recent years, at least since when I looked at Google Ngrams, in the recent I think decade or so, this word is really caught up, UBI. And in fact, when I was doing a lot of the research, I saw talks from a lot of people. In fact, even the 2016 and 2017. So it's pre all of the chat GPTs, all of the LLM models. There's something that's been around and it's been in pop culture, but it's only making a resurgence now. Okay, I basically made sure that I had the worst headshots of all of these people. These are all people that we know of, and they have some sense or they have something to say about the topic of UBI. I know it's a little small, the font, but I'll just basically read it out. Elon Musk says that there's a pretty good chance that we end up with a universal basic income or something like that due to automation. He doesn't think that we are going to have a choice. That's basically what he says. He's also been saying that driverless cars are right around the corner, so who knows. Mark Zuckerberg is also of the opinion that UBI serves as a cushion. Bill Gates has been on the fence. He thinks that we are still not rich enough to deploy something like that, but it's something that's certainly possible. And Andrew Yang, he was a presidential candidate in 2020. He basically, as part of his manifesto, his agenda, he basically promised that he will run a program to give $1,000 per month per individual in support in the essence of UBI. He obviously didn't win, but the idea is in such mainstream discussions that even people run presidential campaigns on the back of an idea like UBI. So it's definitely sort of around us, this topic, and that's why I think we should at least be cognizant of what the idea is. Now, UBI is a very funny concept, right? It's funny because people are undecided. When we look at left-wing people, predominantly people who want status quo, they generally oppose the concept of UBI, saying that it's a very costly freebie or a giveaway scheme that discourages people to sort of work, and it encourages them to be slackers and undermines work ethic. But some subsets of people do also think that it supports streamlining bureaucratic inefficiency. So, for example, think of Doge. Right? Doge is classic, Donald Trump's initiative, classic right wing. Don't mean to get political here, but he basically said we want to streamline everything, and Doge is a part of that. Right? So they're always looking to streamline, and this falls in something like that. You don't need to check anything. You don't need to have a lot of conditionals built in. You can just say, hey, free money. We don't want to care. Right? So it could save up money, but also give money. Interestingly, the left, is also divided on the topic of UBI. The kind of people I mentioned, they're all mostly left-leaning, right? They're all Silicon Valley titans, mostly left-leaning. Even they are divided. So they see that it is a way to end poverty, but some also question its effectiveness, because some experiments have been done in some countries. I'll talk a bit more about the countries, but countries like Namibia, countries like Finland, countries like Iran, India in some senses, Kenya, they've all tried some versions of UBI and have had mixed results, right? And mixed results because the thought experiment in saying, hey, this is UBI, this is unconditional money, they've only run these for like a year or a very short span. When people know I'm getting this free money for a year, they have a very different attitude towards it versus saying this is free money for life. The kind of choices they could make could be very different. So we still don't know if it works or not. So that's why people are divided. But the odd thing is, we know that this idea transcends political boundaries. It's something that people are thinking on both sides of the spectrum, and hence they also think it's like a common sense solution for the world we're entering, which is why we're talking about it now. Okay, some of the questions that come up when we think of UBI, handing out free money. I'm just throwing out some questions. I don't think we have all of the answers. I don't think anyone has all of the answers, but it's good to at least think of these ideas, right? Will it make inflation skyrocket? We've all heard in economics that if we print more money, suddenly the value of things goes up. Well, if you redistribute income, it doesn't. If you print money, it does, right? So we don't know how it's going to be presented or how it's going to be implemented. How will such an unprecedented, untested exercise be funded? Right? Because to do something at a small scale for a year is different from saying, hey, this country is now doing UBI. Is very different. And where is the money coming from to support such a large scale exercise? Some people say we could tax people. Well, if you tax people on the one hand and then give them UBI, it basically nullifies it. So it doesn't really add up. I mean, some estimates say that you have to tax people 74% to give them UBI. I mean, it sort of stops making sense at certain points. We still don't know what that question is. Does the boost in productivity and automation from AI more than offset the fraction of population getting handouts? So some people say, yes, you could have slackers. But the kind of productivity will unlock from people feeling free from what they want to do, from the kinds of intelligence that is emerging, from AGI, will the productivity gains basically say, you know what, it's basically a rounding error, giving people free money because we're that much more prosperous? We don't know the answer. Should robots be taxed to compensate for the ones who might be forced to reskill or get displaced? This is also an idea that's floating. It's called the robot tax. It's gaining a lot of popularity. People saying if robots are taking away our jobs, then they should be the ones to compensate us for our loss of livelihood. How this gets to be implemented, we don't know. Like, what is a robot? Is it the corporation? Is it software? Is it a person? We don't know that.
If robot gets taxed, right, we lose 100%.
Yeah. Another question that emerges is, will humans still want to work? Right? Because humans from time immemorial have always wanted to do something. You look at people who've made it very big in life. You have billionaires of the world in existential angst. They don't know what to do. They're like, yeah, I thought there would be more to life than this. I have everything that I want and I'm still not happy. So people find meaning in work. If there is no work, how does that bode for people's mental health? We don't know that. Who will do the unpleasant jobs? There are a lot of jobs that are menial, that are unpleasant, that people do because they get money. If we have universal basic income, who will do those jobs? So a lot of open questions that we don't know the answers to. I encourage you to all think about this. Lob me any questions you get and we'll discuss. Talking of India versus the international perspective, like I said, a lot of countries have tried. Even in India, this is not a concept that's been lost on the RBI. The RBI, while it's not discussed very explicitly or at much length of what it's thinking on UBI, but the economic survey of 2016-17 basically had an entire chapter dedicated to UBI, the kinds of issues that implementation could lead to, the kinds of effects it could have on the Indian economy. So it's not like they've not been thinking. So it's basically much closer to us than we think. The governments are already thinking about it. Some schemes have even in fact in India, some schemes have already been run in Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, Odisha, Kerala, in again limited trials. The main challenge is that India's 1.4 billion population is unique, except for China, but that's a whole different kind of country or governing system. This population presents an unprecedented implementation challenge. How do we implement something like this? Could it save money if we do the Aadhaar way and sort of take away all the other incentives? Could it not? Very difficult to tell. In fact, I have been thinking of how does India, a country like India, implement something like this if we wanted to, right? Because if you take the sum total of all the thoughts, it's a net zero. Some people are if pro for it, some people are anti. Some people think based on this research it could work well, but who's willing to bell the cat? Who's willing to take the initiative, launch it, and say, "Hey, we're rolling it out in India." How do we do that? If we want to do that, is a question that's open. So, which is what I said. How should this be approached in India? Open question. Yes. The epilogue. What could the world look like when all of this plays out? This ties into what something that Samuel was also saying. By when can we expect AGI or ASI to roll in? Everyone's divided. People say from 2030 to 2050. And I think with the kind of pace that we have seen developments in the recent tech, it's nobody's guess. But it's said that the displacement of jobs could be between 15 to 60%, depending on what kind of a job it is, how susceptible it is to the AI sort of taking over. At one point in time, we thought creative, fields were the most padded or cushioned from AI, but funnily enough, those are the ones that have been sort of decimated much quicker than some of the other jobs. So, a lot of unknowns. Possible scenarios: a utopian scenario where work is optional. UBI and AGI generated wealth is much more than universal basic income. It's basically universal super intelligence income. It's basically luxury income. At least that's what Elon Musk thinks. And there'll be a cultural renaissance. We will have a new awakening. We will find new ways of finding meaning in life. Is the optimist story. The pessimist story is that there's going to be mass unemployment, extreme inequality. So that goes on to the point that you were mentioning earlier of how does it tie into people dying, right? If there is a lot of social unrest and it's a winner takes all, right? There's a concentration of compute and power in the hands of a very few, and there is no guarantee they will act in the best interest of humanity. We've seen how Elon Musk says, "Hey, I'm in the interest of humanity. I want to take everyone to Mars." But it's very difficult to argue that some of what he's talking about seems unhinged. He seems to talk out of his backside. Sometimes he's just very whimsical. So, do we want to leave power to the hands of the whimsical? Is that a wise thing to do? We don't know that. It's yet to be tested. It could also lead to social breakdown, instability, widespread mental health crisis because people will suddenly be faced with the void of what do they want to do in life. And the next is a middle ground. It's a word I learned while doing this research. It's called protopia. The smack in the middle of utopia and dystopia, which basically says it's going to be a gradual shift. Humans are very resilient. We have weathered a lot of changes throughout history. While this could be unprecedented in terms of how quick this is, how big it is, but we will find our way because that's how we have been, right? When calculators came along, bank personnel went on strike saying, "Hey, this is going to replace us." But we've gotten along. I think we've developed new kinds of tools, new kinds of products. So it's not as if it's all bad. So it could be a partial thing. And this I feel personally is the most likely scenario because this is where the rubber meets the road. There is not going to be a singular moment where we can say, "Oh, AGI is here. Oh, UBI is here." It's going to be a continuum. It's going to be something that we can't point out on a calendar and say this was the moment when history changed. So we'll have to keep our eyes and ears open, keep them, peer for new information, and see how all of this develops. And we'll see. So regardless of what we think, it would behoove us. I really wanted to use that word. I'm sorry. To watch this idea closely in the coming future and questions. Thank you so much.
additionally giving money to everybody, the richest is also going to get the same, and the poorest is also going to get the same. They're not two equitable. It's equal, but
They're not. And it's, I don't, so, sorry, complete your question.
Question is why? Why UBI?
Why UBI? Okay. So the question of why UBI, as I understand it, right, is that if we leave it to the hands of the capitalists, we leave it to the hands of free market economy, there will be some people who have all of the power and the money and the work, and some people who are just, out left to fend for themselves. And that's a recipe for disaster. So the idea is, by handing out some sustenance money to everyone, and as you rightly pointed out, if I give $10,000 or say 1 lakh rupees to every person in India, proportionally speaking, the rich is going to be a fraction of a fraction of a fraction for them. They're not going to care. But for someone who's living just on the poverty line, it could mean the difference between starving to death and still being able to earn or sort of get some food. Which is why I said I'll come back to this line that Thomas More wrote. It would be better. That's a line, right? So that's where I think the concept of UBI comes in, where people always, when we think of change and when we think of uncertainty, we think of, okay, is there a guaranteed amount of money that I can get without doing anything, just as a fail-safe, as a safety net? I think that's the concept as I understand. Yes.
Yeah, great talk, right?
Thank you.
So one thing I was thinking, like, if you take the FADA very seriously, then at least the elites who reach a level of self-sufficiency, for them, like, money is, like, they don't operate with money, right? Like, if you just have an energy source and enough compute, they can just, like, do everything. So, like, I mean, like, in that concept, like, I mean, I never think, like, what is money? Yeah, what is the point of money?
True.
And like, there's no incentive for these self-sufficient capitalists with their robots to trade with other entities or whatever. They can self-produce.
Entirely true.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Who's going to pump money to this UBI? Like,
So
where is the money for UBI?
Sure.
If you live in abundance, what is the use of money?
Yes, that's a good question, because I think someone quoted it best, that money is but just a ledger of the utility people have provided to the world. The more utility provided, the more money you have, because it's basically a fictitious number. At least in the words of Yuval Noah Harari, it's a fictitious number. It's a story we've all built for ourselves. Yes. Those are some questions. So, by the way, all the questions people are asking, I will do a little more research and come back to you with better answers to your questions. I'll take a note from the recording and I'll come back. But I'm just speaking of my own instincts right now. I don't know the answer to the question, frankly, of what the concept of money could mean. I haven't even touched the concept of DAOs, digital autonomous organizations, which are without a soul, without a human person at the center. They're just organizations that are in code, which have a legal existence, and they deal with code and money. So what will happen in the world, we don't know.
I just have one follow-up. So, that is Samarkand, I think, a couple of years back, in the interest of humanity, he created something called Worldcon to address the
Yes.
universal basic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they also collected a lot of data from
Yeah.
India. I think in bank, 5 places in bank.
Yeah.
I went to the place where
Okay.
they were collecting data. I think the way the whole thing ran was very obvious. I mean, now it's there, they have shut down
Okay.
in India. So, I mean, the whole idea was universal basic income, because his thought process was he was odds to scam your iris.
Yeah.
Because the fingerprints can be manipulated.
Yeah.
It is so that they can differentiate between a human and a bot. But that is ironic. Okay, that is not ironic, because the recently I read that the bots can, the ChatGPT agent can actually click, I am not a robot.
Yes.
So I don't know where this would all.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but the whole idea was this would distinguish between a human and a robot in a world.
Which is why I wrote point number 6, CAPTCHA.
CAPTCHA,
Right? Because we don't know, like, who is robot, who is non-robot. It is like a nerd joke I left in. We don't know that.
Again, the whole concept of what he was talking about, when we live in a lot of abundance and concentrated with a few people. Plus, Sam Altman, I don't know, it's a world once again underwriting his compute.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is similar to that.
Yeah.
So it's this, I don't know where that actually fits in.
Yeah.
I don't know where the project is.
I couldn't fit it in. I wanted to, but I couldn't fit it in.
why it was not there.
I remember we spoke.
Yeah, we were speaking about it.
I was wondering why it was not there because
I was on 19 minutes 30 seconds, by the way, so smack on time.
so I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Any other questions people have?
Yeah, like you said, inflation doesn't increase when UBI, but it will obviously, I mean, the case for when we print money is clear, but wow, is there a simple answer for why?
So it depends. I was doing a bit of research on this. Depends on how it's implemented, right? If we basically print money, we do printing money is basically stealing from anyone's bank account and sort of distributing, right? Which is why your rupee or dollar loses value. It's basically stealing micro cents or micro rupees from every account. So that's printing money. If we do that, then we're basically inflating away. Then you will have no reason to be happy if I distribute 1,000 rupees to each person here, because everything's going to go up in price proportionally. So doesn't matter. If, however, we do a redistribution of income, somehow we say we're going to tax the rich much more than the poor, and so that the basic mean inequality or the mean income level somehow arrives a little more close to the median. Then it could have a much more meaningful impact. But which, as I said, a lot of nuances. We don't know how it's going to be implemented, but it is a question that comes up often of could it lead to runaway inflation or not?
I come from poverty space, like I work for poverty, and that's why this topic is slightly relatable, not the AI part, but the former part. What we've seen is this UBI is, yes, it's active in India, it's active in Bangladesh, many countries in Africa, but in us, for a smaller conditional subset. While the money you can use unconditionally on whatever you want to use, but your selection for that subset will be based on some certain parameters. Right? There's a book by Vijay Balaji, who's a Nobel laureate, economist, called Poor Economics. Yes, and they talk about S curve. And the S curve, what they say is that there's a point after which your today's income is less than your future's income, which means you're the same, you're going to go. But there's a point where, due to all the expenses and inflation, your today's income is actually more than your tomorrow's income. And that's the subset where the UBI or an unconditional cash transfer actually are going through. If today I'm earning 100 rupees, tomorrow's value is going to be probably somewhere around 80. And why? Because I don't have means to reinvest it somewhere, grow my business, grow on whatever I can do to be more sustainable. I probably just one healthcare shop or one festival away from poverty. The festivals are with Diwali ke liye they would want to keep the money, but not for the basics of what you can really eating and all. So from that perspective, of course, it has worked and it has been sustainable, but only if there's a hand holding provided along with it. Giving you 100 rupees, now how do you use the 100 rupees?
Yes.
Has to be handheld for a long period of time. Well, after that, they become entrepreneurs, micro entrepreneurs, and they start something of their own. So that's we are working around 1 lakh families in India.
Yeah.
So that giving 40,000 rupees across 3 years and helping them not migrate and do poultry business, do agriculture business, do a forest produce, a lake uses produce, and create something and sell it out, and just change the mindset. So I think it's a very, as you said, it's
Contested.
going on.
Yeah.
Our pensions are also in a way UBI.
But they're conditional in a certain sense. On employment history, on how long you work.
When you get it. Not conditional on how you use it.
True.
Yeah. Let's say a widow woman will get a pension if they are matching some certain parameters.
Yes.
But once they get the pension, they can do whatever.
Yes. So, I mean, most welfare schemes, as I understand them, they don't sort of dictate how it could be used, but they're more structured in how they are administered. You should be these conditions, you should fall in this. And while there have been smaller studies done for shorter durations, it has led to less rates of depression and more satisfaction and less stress in people. But no one has done a large-scale, long-term, longitudinal study on this, where people can say, yes, this works. Which is why whoever is the person who's pushing the envelope here and saying, let's deploy it, will actually be pioneers in saying, let's take this risk and see what happens. Possibly, I'm not aware of the work. We'll discuss perhaps post.
It's 6 countries. And so those models are, I think, somewhere around there. Now, one new thing which is coming in India is CNBC. It's e-rupee.
CBDC.
CBDC, whatever.
Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC.
So you get money directly in your account. You need to have an app, but you can also administer where you're using that money.
That's open.
It's basically like programmable money, whether the government can control and freeze at any point in time. It's a hotly debated topic.
It's not taken off.
It's not targeting it like
Huh.
Yes, I think it has
a smartphone, a smartphone offer a certain update
Yeah.
OS version, and many people don't have it, and the target audience don't have
Yeah.
it. So that's the challenge.
Hotly debated.
Sorry guys, I think so we got it short. We'll take a break now for 10
Perfect.
minutes and we will continue.